Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the DrEnderPickles show. Today we have an esteemed guest, a group leader. Those are always great. Co-leader, but I guess you could say, like, I don't know how you would say that, Oreo, but we have American Oreo on. Hello, American Oreo.
Hello.
How are you?
Life's good. Grateful.
I'm glad to hear it. So let's just hop right into the questions. How and when did you join 2B2T?
So I joined December 2014 around Christmas time, and I was invited by Colt Snid. I think that he had joined a few months before, so way back then.
Yeah, and you knew Colt Snid in real life? You guys were friends outside of the game back then?
Yeah, we met in church in our hometown a long time before that. I think a few years before that is when I had met him when I was probably about 13 years old, and he'd be 14 at that time.
So what kind of drew you both in? Like, did you both join at the same time, or?
Well, he joined a couple of months before I did in September. He was the first of like my initial friend group to join, along with I think a couple of days after he had joined. Initially, he had invited Invisible Gecko 18 to play with him, but that guy he eventually stopped playing pretty soon after. So he'd been playing alone, and I guess the initial draw was we had been playing on our own server for a while, and we had both gotten pretty, uh, we both really enjoy the game. So that's what eventually somehow on 4chan he found 2B2T and he joined from that advertisement or something.
Yeah, and what were some of your first experiences on the server after you guys joined?
So back in 2014, the map wasn't as grieved. You could go like just a few hundred blocks out and there'd still be grass and dirt. People built up farms everywhere. The nether looked really different back then. There wasn't a hub or anything. It was just basically normal looking nether with maybe one obsidian platform at 0, 0 that branched out about 100 blocks. But after that initial 100 block platform, pathways and highways were built to a certain extent, but nowhere near the infrastructure or to the extent. And there were also there were no diagonal highways, to my recollection, or maybe those were just beginning to get built at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like that must have been a very interesting dynamic, starting, coming together with your friends on a server like this, right? Were you guys in high school or college at the time?
So I think I was going into my freshman year of high school. And actually, I said I was 13. I had to have been 15 or 16. So maybe I was going into my sophomore year of high school. We didn't go to school or anything together. He went to a different school than I did, but both of our families had met up to go to the same community church at the time. So
Do you think that's a reason that like religion is brought so heavily into Voco, like through churches and stuff like that?
So that's complicated. So I think that the the satirical elements of our group and all of the satire was very heavily influenced by the religious trauma brought upon us in our area because it's predominantly fundamental Southern Baptist. And I don't know if you know anything about like
Oh, I'm
fundamentalist
very
sects of
aware. Very
Christianity.
aware.
Okay, well, in the Bible Belt, people ride really hard for that kind of stuff. To give you an example of how ridiculous people get, especially when it comes to terms of fundamentalist Christianity, there was once a man who told me, he goes, what did he say? He goes, I would rather fling myself in front of a train than watch my friend die. And you're probably thinking, oh, this must be in reference to something horrible occurring. He was saying that in reference to his friend being gay. He was comparing his friend getting hit into by a train to being a homosexual. So, like the amount of like ridiculousness and parody that's needed for fundamentalist Christian groups or fundamentalist extremist groups in any way, I think we need more of that in our society still to this day. Those people need to be made fun of. It's horrible.
Mocked and ridiculed.
It's
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm
yeah.
surrounded by those kind of people, so. I totally get what you're talking about. Um,
Right.
so let's bring it back to the sort of the conception of Voco, right? Like there's obviously a story behind that conception. What can you say about the very beginning of that era on 2B?
Okay. So of course I was there for the beginning. I saw it all the way through. So we were originally going to call ourselves the Neon Golems. We had played on a server before, and that was our group name. And I thought it was a cool name. I was really, really young when I thought of it, but something about it, the Iron Golem had just been like added to Minecraft. So I was like, oh, that's pretty freaking cool. Let's call
Yeah, I
ourselves
was
the
I
Neon
was I was
Golems.
the same way with Enderman, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah. So I wanted to call ourselves that. And then Colt Snit had watched some TV show. Let's see what it's the with the Vortex Club in it, which is it's from a it's Life is Strange, I think is what the TV show is called. But there's like a there he found that the group name through that, so he started calling us the Vortex Coalition. So when we originally decided to be called the Vortex Coalition, our original logo wasn't like very offensive or very like edgy. It was a V and a C, and we had built a underground base 100K out, but only 400 off of the y-axis. We thought it was super safe at the time, and we found like a neighboring build like 1,200 blocks away, and we had gone and griefed it, and we'd left our VC logo everywhere, so everybody knows that they'd been raided by the Vortex Coalition. So, where am I going with this? Yeah. Oh, but to get more on the subject of the conception of our logo, especially because that's important. Colts Ninja had a stroke of genius and created it, and it happened to look like a swastika. And then we had like a moment of laughter, and we ran with it. Like it's found it pretty funny.
Right, and like that moment that it's a name, right? It's a name for a group. It's a symbol, right? And that's all funny and
Right.
fun and games. But like, when does it become like this big industrialized like mega faction? Like, when did you guys just decide in your minds that like you were gonna go full send with this group?
So that's crazy, right? So in the beginning, it was really small. The first phase of OCO was very, very small. I can't really say that I was the mastermind behind the entire, like the organizing and the distribution of propaganda. I would say Colson was the writer and I was the recruiter. I did a lot of things and I used a lot of interesting tactics to recruit people, and I just think that our ability to capture, those the minds of people is what really helped us spread. The reason that we decided to spread though is because in the first phase of OCO, there was this group called the Valkyrie, and they were like the group of older players on the server, and I was like, oh, like one day I was like running on the highway and someone kills me, and I was like, no, I kill someone. His name was Fuzzy Future Fox, and someone was like, "You've killed a member of the Valkyrie," and I thought it was we thought it was so stupid, but they came and attacked us on the highway, and we apparently were at war with these people. But they're like the war was like a war of who's better than who. So okay, like we're better than you. We have more members. So like whatever metric they use to measure their betterness than us, we tried to one up them at, because we realized it had nothing to do with what was going on in the server, because obviously there is a big incentive to keep your group secret. It had a lot to do with your notoriety, right? So we employed a lot of tactics to create more notoriety and used memes to achieve that.
Yeah, what were some of the memes that you guys came up with initially for Voco?
Well, like at the time, I had a falling out with that Invisible Gecko guy, so we created I hacked his account and we used him as a bot for a while. And he just like spam chat for like the classic "Did you know" statements, like "Did you know the Vortex Coalition is a large group of players on TB2T?" Like blah blah blah. So we used that so people would hear about us, and then we used spreadsheets, Google Docs to keep everything organized. So whenever people would apply, then we created the website to keep everything organized even better, and have more recruitment. We spread our word. We kept our word. We made a fun, safe environment in a place of anarchy for people to actually enjoy and have fun. I would say Voco is 20% about what we did and 80% about the community because a lot of people are looking for friends and community. Minecraft gets kind of repetitive after a while, especially once you have everything, and especially in the earlier versions. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were mentioning, you guys kind of had this rivalry with Sato and Valkyria, which is interesting because, in my early conception back in 2014, 15, I had some clashes with Sato as well. So that's interesting you say that because I know all about that very vividly. Um,
Yeah.
but how did that rivalry kind of go between you and the Valkyrians?
Mm. So after they had their whole thing, I would get in like these tiny chat groups with like Bit, who at the time called himself something else. It doesn't come to me immediately.
Silent
But
Pedro.
oh yeah, Silent Pedro, yeah. And then Khaleesi and all those people when I was very young. And they're a little bit older than me. I would get in those tiny chats and we just kind of bullshit and joke around with each other. I guess there was never really a war, but eventually they had their own little thing. They had their own little arc, and they had their own little dying out on their own. I mean, they stopped because they wanted to stop. I'm sure they had their reasons, but maybe it's just that people get too old, and that's kind of what happened to me. That's why I stopped playing. Mainly is just because life started happening for me. So I'm sure it's the same for them.
Yeah, and when in the conception of Voco did you decide to kind of drift away and exit the frame of the server?
I believe it was the end of phase three. There was a lot of stuff going on in my life at the time. When I was after probably about 3 years of VOCO, I had graduated high school. I'd been attending college. My performance in school was very poor, not necessarily because I was on the computer too much, but because of some personal issues. And I'd gotten very, very overweight. I don't know if you knew, but the Vortex Coalition had a YouTube channel at the time, and that was really kind of a catalog of my obesity. Like I got very sick when I right before I joined, or correction, right before I co-founded Voco, I had gotten diagnosed with diabetes. So once I'd gotten diagnosed with diabetes, my health just kind of took a downward spiral. I wasn't taking my medication correctly. I wasn't managing my weight effectively, and I was eating very poorly. So that eventually led to me gaining an additional 60 pounds, even though I was already 60 pounds over a normal weight. And at that time, I was pretty lethargic, pretty tired, pretty sick. And I realized 2 years into VOCO that I needed to take a step away from everything and reassess what it meant to be a healthy individual, right? And obviously at the time, there was a lot of toxicity, with the Russia invasion and everything going on. So that definitely wasn't contributing to my holistic vision of what it meant to be a healthy person. So that's when I decided I wanted to take a step away from the server and start improving my health.
Yeah, and where did that weight loss journey begin? What was kind of the beginning of that, and what kind of pushed you to lose all of that weight?
Well, that's a good question, right? I'd always kind of known like once I'd got out on my own and like had more like self determinism in my life because when you're a child, there's people taking care of you. You're stuck somewhere you don't necessarily want to be. But when you become an adult, like your world becomes like a lot freer to you, right? So I was kind of, stuck behind my computer at all the time in the world to do all this stuff. But then I realized there's a lot more to life. So that's when I decided to take that first step. I think that sometimes you're the best uh, thing about your situation. And I think a lot of people don't admit that. Like they say, oh, well, I'm in a bad situation, or there's bad things about my situation that I can't control. But really, you may actually be pretty awesome, and everything else around you is actually holding you down. Um, and I think in my case, that was definitely true. There were a lot of external factors that were plaguing me. And once all those external factors were mitigated and I controlled them around me, I was able to become a lot healthier and become a lot more successful and become a man. And that meant leaving the Vortex Coalition ultimately.
Yeah, and you left for a while. You worked on yourself, and once you got to, I assume, a stable place, you came back to the community.
Right.
What was your motivator for coming back into 2B?
Interesting. Okay. So the time that I came back, I think was 2020. I wanted to see what had happened with the group and the community since I had left, and I was kind of curious, like, oh well, what's going on with 2B2T? And when I came back, I was like, wow, this server's really messed up now. The queue never got fixed. Priority queue is ridiculously expensive. I don't understand the incentive of basically the server is the way it's organized now just leads to our tactics being ineffective. Like it used to be really fun to, you know, recruit people and do all the things and create a group. And then also, I feel like I'm not answering your question effectively. You ask why I came back. So the reason I came back was the reason I came back to the server in 2020 was because I'd taken a break from speaking with Colt Snid, and I wanted to give our friendship another chance. To be honest, um, yeah,
Yeah, what was kind of the falling out between you two? Because I didn't even know there was any sort of like beef or disconnect or anything like that.
right. Well, to keep the personal things personal. I mean, I'm not saying there was really anything crazy going on. Just when you change the amount that I did and in the way that I did, you lose people, you lose friends. A lot of people are incapable of great amounts of change, and in a lot of ways, I was beginning to change, and he was beginning to stay where he was at. So if that's kind of the measure of a good friend. And you learn these lessons in those big transitional phases in your life, like between the ages of 18 and 20, where the things that don't hold are sometimes just not meant to hold. And ultimately, I realized I was going to have to move on, even after I came back in 2020. It was just for a short time, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this really isn't going to work."
Yeah, is he active now though? I mean, yeah, he's probably I don't think I've seen him in the community for a while. Like it seems like he's kind of taken a step back from 2B.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't spoken to him in about 3 years. I think maybe two and a half.
I mean, do you think he's been working on himself or trying to move forward
Uh,
from that
I
spot?
hope so. I
Yeah.
sure hope so.
Yeah, I mean, that holds very true. People get stuck in their ways, right? They get very comfortable, and it becomes very difficult to see a reason to improve yourself. So I definitely
Right,
understand what you're trying to say.
right.
Um,
I think maybe his way of moving on or getting a grasp on his life was also disbanding Boko, because I don't I don't know if there's a place for men on this like server, or how you maintain that, or like what that looks like, right? um I really don't know what that would look like.
yeah. So, what do you know about the disbanding of Voco? Did you have any kind of input on the group ending, or did you know anything about that?
Well, disbanding of Oko, I know there was a falling out with one of the developers, Isaac. Isaac had built a lot of the infrastructure for the website and done the majority of the programming, and he wasn't happy that Colt Snid was taking credit for his work and also not paying him, because Voco was handling some money at the time with all of the player transactions and stuff. So a lot of shit hit the fan with that.
So it was more of like a money issue.
Yeah, monetary issues were one of the biggest reasons that Voco ended, but also Colt Snid's life needing to move on. He needed to hone down and focus on his studies.
Yeah. Well, did they have like a Vocoin or some sort of like cryptocurrency thing going on?
Yeah,
Was,
yeah,
was
and
that
people were buying
was
it.
that an actual crypto or was that just a meme?
Yeah, no, people were buying. people were spending a lot of money on Voco.
Do you know if there's
They
anyone
were,
that
yeah.
still that still holds Vocoin, that still has
The
money
infrastructure
invested?
collapsed, but the thing is, like, the infrastructure collapsed, but there's still real money that was that was exchanged, and quite. I won't disclose how much that amount that was, but it was in the thousands. We collected, yeah, quite a bit of.
Wow.
He collected quite a bit of money, yeah, from players.
That's insane to for the Vortex
Yeah.
Coalition has like, and will probably continue to hold the title for like the cryptocurrency in the anarchy space that has collected the most money, that has been the most
Oh yeah, it's
profitable.
insane. Yeah, well, yeah, it shows you where an ambition can get you. But like I was saying, like I think that a great question to ask would be like, where does that go and where does it end? I think some of the most interesting groups are the groups that are, like developing tools for the server, developing hacks, and developing things for the server, because that's a appropriate way to uh, to do things on the server. But the way that we were doing things, and the way we were managing things, and the thing that we were trying to create, it just doesn't have the same place that it did or that it used to have back then, right? Like I think that we made Voco as a way to have a place to have friends, because where we lived there wasn't a lot of people to interact with, right? Now I live in a place where I have plenty of in real life friends. I interact with plenty of people who are real on a daily basis, right? But there's plenty of people who are completely absorbed in the escapism of the internet, right? So I think that also the more friends, the more friends that I got outside of the space, the less I valued Voco, um, right?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely, and I realized that too. I took a break from like 2018 until quarantine until 2020, and
Right.
you once you do that, like once you separate from the community, obviously you still want to dip your toes in every now and then, like being in the pre-June chat, being in, these slight little slice of life chats where there's a couple people that used to play the server, right? You kind of message them here and there because it's good to keep up with old friends, but you don't really, you know, push yourself into the culture of the community. But I mean, when I came back in 2020, I think a lot of people did too during quarantine, even yourself. Um,
Hmm.
kind of jumping back into that anarchy zeitgeist once again. It's really simple when you want to, so you can kind of come and go with it if you know what to do.
Right. Another thing is I actually had the opportunity to meet what's his name? The guy who owns Spawn Masons. I met him in real life. He came and he
Oh,
came and
Herm,
visited me. Yeah, he visited me.
you met Hermetic Lock. Yeah, tell me
Yeah.
about meeting Hermetic Lock. He's actually one of my good friends.
Oh, so it's cool, right? So I live in Hawaii. So one time he texted the group chat. I saw it. He was like, "Hey, does anybody live in Hawaii?" Someone was like, "Oh yeah, Oreo does," and he gets in contact with me. I'm like, "Yeah, man, come to my fire show. I'm a fire dancer, so I do like a whole bunch of like fire shows out here now and stuff." And he came and watched me fire dance, and then we ate some really good Thai food. It was just like seeing an old friend. It felt really good. It was super, really genuine and awesome interaction. I don't know what else to say about it.
What do you remember from him in Voco? Like, what was his role in the group?
That's a good question, right? Like I said, there was a lot of moving pieces. We really it's the trajectory of Oko is so like was such a bell curve that so many things were going on at once. That's a really hard thing to answer. So many people had so many different roles, doing so many things, and it was like being on the Wolf of Wall Street. There was always things going on, always people doing crazy stuff, so many different things happening all at once, right? And at the it was kind of it was all kind of a big joke, and I think that was the underpinning of it all, just being good humor, was what made it the most enjoyable, I think.
Yeah, and you guys had a pretty complex ranking system, right? That kind of dictated the members of the group. How did that ranking system work?
So that's a great question. How did the ranking system work? So basically, at first we were structuring the ranking system like normal, but then we got really into like how cults work, and we wanted to make it more cult like, so we
Of
started
course.
like adding like MLM aspects to it, which makes the Vocoin thing so much
I was
funnier.
actually,
Like
that's crazy you say that because I was actually going to ask, is Voco more like a multi-level marketing scheme or a cult? And you literally just said both of those, so that's crazy. I guess it's like a mix of
So
the
yeah,
two.
like we created the ranking structure based off of an MLM, which is hilarious because it's like, oh yeah, you can be an exalted initiate and an enamored initiate. You can be a platinum initiate now. Like you're not just an init, like you're ranking up because people because people enjoy getting the feeling like they're rising up, right? Uh and what's even funnier is I can think of so many times where we really just trolled people. There was this guy from, I think he was from Finland. And the thing about Finland is they have like the most unsimilar language to like the rest of the world. So this guy, he was a programmer, but his grant, like the way that he spoke English, you could tell that like he didn't really understand. Well, he had like a grasp on our words and how we used them. But what we would do is we would intentionally rearrange sentences, like the structure of sentences, and pretend that we were making sense to each other. So we'd spend like these, we'd have like 20 minutes chatting back and forth with completely broken sentences like, you're today when, let me know available. Like we just break sentences up like that and like put him in chat and he'd be like, what's going on here? It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun moments. Uh,
Yeah, and what was like your favorite moment from Voco, just out of your
oh
entire
man, that's a
experience?
hard one. So maybe the first time like Colt Snid made the swastika, and he's like, I was like, that's a swastika. He's like, no, it's a vortex. And I was like, Colt Snid, come on, man.
Yeah,
That was
that's
a really
a
funny
it's a
moment.
common misconception nowadays.
Oh yeah, so yeah, and then I think that was really funny. There were so many moments. Like we had this friend named Varga Girl. She was from Australia. She was an older woman. You probably know her of her, right?
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
played
I
on
know of
server
Varga.
for almost it. We were friends with her for so long, and then one day we just decided to grief her base. So we just went over there and just literally like betrayed her, like RKO, and stole all her horses, destroyed her entire castle. Just horrible, horrible griefing.
What was
Just
her
great.
response to that?
I never want to talk to you again. I hate you. And
Holy shit.
it was so horrible. And even to this day, she still just hates me to absolute hell. Um, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
you mentioned earlier that you were kind of involved in the Russia War, that era. What was that like seeing that era come to 2B2T and just seeing everything get flipped on its head all at once?
So crazy. So like I didn't have ties to like Nerds Inc. or anything like that. I didn't really have friends that were like older players, but as soon as that happened, like I really came together with like Tristan and Clyde and all of those guys, and we became friends. So like I'd say that's when my friendship with them started, which is probably the coolest thing to come out of that because I got invited to all like to 3v3T, which is it's called something else now, but I got invited to like their private server and everything, and we became really good friends because we had to kind of come together because we were the older players on the server, right? Um, so I think that was probably my favorite. Or what was the question?
Just what it was like to see that new era of 2B2T come into play with Russia, the whole Russia War, and your kind of experiences in that debacle.
I don't know. I think it was weird at first because we tried to like vie for notoriety because it was the YouTube error. And then we just realized that erring on the side of just absolute parody and humor was like the best way to go still. Like we created so many great memes and had so much fun. And we even picked up like I think Colton or Colt Snid learned a lot of about video editing at during that and learned a lot of skills, coding, everything from the Russia War. So indirectly, he picked up a lot of skills, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, were you involved in any big fights like with NetaT or like Peacekeepers or any other groups like that?
I'm trying to remember who Netta T was. Sounds very familiar.
I think she was one of those like big group leaders during the Russia War.
Oh,
It's like there was like Team
nope.
Rainbow, Peacekeepers, all these other groups at the time.
Oh, Peacekeepers, the
Yeah.
fourth Reich. Yeah, we had a couple run-ins with the Fourth Reich there, but like our memes were just so much better, right? Like they may have like we may have had some fun like fighting them and losing or whatever, quote unquote losing, but we really controlled the propaganda machine. And that's kind of when we created like the 365 base initiative, where we just created so much bases or some correction, so many bases that we were just basically because when you have so many members and you have so many bases and you spread out your power and you spread out your influence and basically everything's just hype in the chat anyway, right? It doesn't really matter what happens or what the ongoings of those wars are. So did Voco participate in any major wars or battles? No, but we won the hearts and minds of the people.
Right, and that's all that matters, right? You didn't need to like win any wars or fight any battles. You controlled the media, and that's all that matters in the
Yeah,
long run.
the
You
printing
you
press.
control the history books.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. Because
Yeah,
I don't I
what's
don't remember the Fourth Reich. First of all, their name's
yeah.
horrible. Who
Oh, of
who
course,
wants to
yeah.
who
They're like
wants to
too they're
remember the Fourth
too on
Reich?
the they're
That's
too on the
too
nose.
edgy.
Yeah, they're too on
Too
the
on the
nose with
nose.
their
Yeah,
like
yeah. You
offensive
gotta. hmm
propaganda. Yeah, you got to be
Yeah,
subtle about
you
it.
gotta. You
Like
gotta
some
be subtle, like
vortexes.
hmm yeah, and you gotta have a cool logo. You can't make a Fourth Reich logo. That's just a swastika. You gotta be creative, And like the logos everywhere. I guarantee you, I go on the server. I'm not spending $20, but if I went on the server right now, it'd still be there because it'll always live.
Yeah, what do you like want people to take away from the legacy of Oko now? Where do you think has still resonated, and what do you want people to take away from your group?
Um, that's a good question. I think that people need to understand that things can really be too big, and sometimes big things really do fail. There's no such thing as too big to fail because um, when things get big, failure is always a possibility. Voco had a really great run. We had a lot of fun, but I think that eventually, especially on something like a Minecraft server, things are always gonna fizzle out. Um, and it's okay. Like life happens, change happens. So just be happy with change and enjoy your time while you have it. Like have fun on the server, make your friends and everything. But yeah,
Yeah, there's got to be a good balance. You can't pay too much attention to one part of your life or the other.
absolutely.
So what are your kind of hopes for the future of 2B in general? Like, what do you hope for the future? Maybe a year, 5 years in the future for 2B.
Yeah, I don't really know. That's a good question. So probably that I don't think less people will ever play. I just fail to see genuinely how it's enjoyable to play on a server where there's 300 people in queue. Like just like I'm not really too hone on ever like trying to even log on to the server again. My hopes for 2B is that people forget about it and it turns back into what it was, which I know will never happen because the memories and the kinds of things that I did on the server just don't feel possible anymore at this time. And I'd love to see that a different way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean they recently. I don't know if you know this. The temp map. I mean, you must have played on that, right? I think I saw you online. The April Fool's map they did. They
yeah,
had
I logged on to it.
a huge population on there. They were using some sort of multi-threaded. I don't know if it was a plugin or how they were running the server. It's called Folia. They were able to
Yeah, I heard
able to
about
host an
that.
absolute like metric shit ton of players online. So do you think that if
Yeah.
like they were to implement something like multi-threading on a newer update, that would bring back 2B2T in your opinion, like your 2B2T, your vision of the server?
Well, okay, so we need to rethink our model also. One of the biggest failures of Voco, and if that happens, I will probably be who's running it. Colt Snid might come back into the picture, but it's easy to see how Voco could happen again. And if Voco's happening again, American Oreo is happening again.
Yeah,
I'm not
let's
leaving
go.
this on its I'm not leaving my group on its head, and I will rise back to power because I am the heart and the soul. I'm the co-founder of this group. No one's taking that away from me. But if multi-threading comes back to the server and we're able to host more people online, we need to really rethink our recruiting philosophy, and we need to find a way to prevent children from joining. Because I'm a 24-year-old man now, I need to figure out what I can do to have safe fun. I need to rethink the Vortex Coalition's logo, and I need to rethink its legacy. I need to really take a hard look at everything that we can do to keep children safe on the server, to keep them separate from the adults, and to have an enjoyable and fun experience, and what that means and what that looks like for mature and fun-loving people.
That's a
And I
great
know,
mindset to have, especially with some of the other groups that are on 2B right now. That's an incredibly mature and respectable way to approach change that needs to happen within the groups on 2B2T.
yeah, absolutely, because I know that there's plenty of children that play here. I don't want any part of interacting with children, but I know that there's a large population that is 7 to 8 years older, like I am now, that would love a group to actually get into, right? And I'm not talking, and I won't talk to 18-year-olds. I won't talk to 19-year-olds, maybe 20-year-olds, or maybe even 21 plus, because we need a place to have mature, rational discourse and really work on our distribution of items, distribution of materials, distribution of players, workloads, and we need to start talking real money and what that looks like. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that go into that, and to keep everything away from everywhere, we need to think about what kind of in-game payments we're going to use and everything like that. But I think that the way we structure our payments in the past kind of kept it legitimate and fun. So I have a lot of good plans, and I think what's in my mind and what's in the mind and the hearts of the people that I've made contact with in the past is something like that. And maybe we could even join forces with other mature and enjoyable players and other groups from the past to create something better for the future.
Yeah, well, that's a great vision. Thank you so much for coming on this interview and spending your time talking about your time in Voco and sort of your thoughts on Voco and groups and people in general. I really appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to say to wrap things up?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Doctor.
Okay,
Okay, so you still play on 2B2T, right?
I do, I do.
Do you have priority queue?
Currently, yes.
Okay, how do you afford that?
Just $20 a month. I don't really care. I mean, it's a hobby, right? I don't mind paying for something that
Okay.
I know that I'm going to use.
Okay, what's going on in the current affairs of 2B2T today?
Current affairs of 2B2C today. That's a good question. Well, usually, I mean, if there's ever like, I mean, there's big base griefs, right? I'm building a base on 2B right now. Uh,
Right.
Other than that, I mean, there hasn't been many huge events. There's not been many spawn projects, at least within the past 2 to 3 months that I can think of. I mean, there's obviously always people building like Obsidian logos and shit like that, but other than that, it's kind of something that at least I leisurely do. If I get home from work and I want to, make a build or something, I'll do it at a base, and that's it.
Interesting. What are like the major groups of today?
Major groups of today. Well, I'm in the fifth column with Orson and Hermetic Lock and all those people. And
Oh,
we do a
interesting.
lot of griefing, not just on 2B, but outside of 2B as well, like on different people's private servers. Um,
The fifth column.
we're mostly a
Okay.
griefing group, and then there's also the Astral Brotherhood, which Joey Coconut runs, which is like a building group. And then Deloaded still runs Dawn Fuhrer. That group is still going.
So are you guys like a meme group?
I mean, I guess you could say that. I mean, we don't prioritize memes, but we are pretty meme worthy. I mean, we do some meme worthy things, I would say.
Okay, so are there any groups that are selling items today?
I think Dawn Fuhrer had a shop for a little bit. I don't know if they still are selling.
Interesting. That's how you get in trouble with the IRS, right?
Really,
Well, I don't know. I just feel like you would, right? So that's what I
probably.
was that's what I was kind of alluding to. You kind of got to figure out how to play that smart from a because taxes get really hazy. Um, with my obviously with Minecraft. There's not even probably a forum for that, so you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff. But let's see here. I guess I'm off the interview. I'm actually just genuinely curious about this.
Oh
'Cause I haven't
yeah,
played
yeah.
2B2T for a
I mean,
I haven't played
we've
2B2T for a while.
I mean we've sold some stuff before, but it's been through like official merch sites. Like it's been like T-shirts and shit, you know.
You've
Like no,
sold fifth column T-shirts.
yeah, we had a like a merch bubble site for like fifth column T-shirts.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Interesting.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean Imperium's still kicking. Spawn Masons are still
Imperium still
somewhat here.
exists.
Yeah,
Does it? Is it the biggest group?
they're not the biggest, but they're still active. Yeah.
Do they recruit children?
Maybe there might. I think there's like a couple in there.
Kind of weird.
I agree. I agree. I could get into a whole conversation with you about how I feel about certain groups that invite
Oh
children
hell no.
and then decide to
Mm-mm.
meet up with them in real life. But
Oh hell no.
that's already been.
Mm-mm.
I'm not gonna rerun that on my channel because if you guys are interested
Oh,
in
you
that,
you talked about that already? What's it
you
called?
guys can go watch the truth about 2B2T's biggest base if you're really interested in that, or
Mm-mm.
any of the Simpgate videos because those are all about that. But
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
yeah, that's why when you said that, right, you were saying, how dangerous that can be, and
21
how
plus. Yeah, I
you
don't.
want to make a group
Mm-mm.
that is 21 plus. I completely agree that like we need to start really taking back and assessing: do we want these type of adults in the same space as these types of children, right? Because we don't know what's going through the minds of some of these people that play 2B. Let's break down what 2B even is, right? It's a group of people that are coming from what 4chan, these like other like derelict parts of the internet, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And like, do we really want those people around children? That's a question to
No.
ask, right? And I've made quite a
Right.
few videos that dissect like what some of these people do when they're unattended, when they think nobody's watching. And I think Sato even made some videos about that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I completely
Yeah.
agree with you about that.
It'd be pretty. I mean, I'm not saying that I want to do this, but it'd be pretty interesting to have like what you ever seen like those like creep chasers or those pedo chasers?
Yes.
I would pay money to watch a Chris Hansen fucking video of 2B2T where they like actually try to catch those motherfuckers in the act.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Like
tough.
I would watch that.
Yeah, get them to meet up at an IHOP, and there you go.
100%. Oh my god. And then like crowdfund it. Like, oh my god. But like, I don't know, like what you think that there could be a group that could do good like that, or do you think that that's even good, or is that something that's like just too much to do or too much to take on?
I think, I think nowadays a lot of people are already doing that on their own, trying to expose people as groomers or whatever. But like,
Interesting.
it's definitely kind of ingrained in not just in the culture of Tubi, but kind of in the internet in general, because that's kind of like the worst thing you can call somebody, right? And I feel like a lot of people
Huh?
do that without gathering sufficient evidence. So whenever I put out like an exposed video on somebody, right, I usually just put out the evidence, right, and then it's up for the people to decide, is this worthy of, like, what should I call this person? What am I perceiving off of this information? I don't try to push a narrative
Right.
or anything. I just put forth the evidence, and I feel like that's the most responsible thing to do with how the internet is nowadays. Unless you have complete 100% proof, and I would say even in that case that you have like 100% proof that somebody's doing something like that online, you should bring it to the authorities. You shouldn't make a big YouTube video about it, right? Like if it's real,
Yeah.
genuine evidence, I mean, you should bring it to the authorities. And I mean, I guess if you want to make a embarrassing video for them too, go ahead. But that the
But
authorities should
then
take
you're kind of
priority over
sticking your
everything.
foot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you're
the
sticking
the
your foot
legal
into hot water
yeah
doing that
the
anyway.
the legal side of it should take
Yeah.
priority anyways.
Interesting. Yeah, so I agree with that. I agree with that. But I'm confused. So how many members are in the fifth column?
So members in the fifth column, let me look. It's a decent amount. I would say yeah, 20 members, maybe a little over 20 members that are officially members. We also have some subcontractors and guests in the Discord.
Oh, have you
Um,
ever had any
oh, I'm sorry, you cut off for a second there. What's up?
Oh, I said, have you had any betrayals?
Uh, I mean, yeah, actually, we've had some betrayals. We've had some tough situations. But like you kind of roll with the punches, right? All the bad seeds kind of work their way out one way or another. I'm sure you've had to deal with that in Voco as well. People turning on the group.
Right. Oh, I see the Spawn Masons controversy where someone had met someone at a place in real life. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
and they think nothing's wrong with it. It's crazy.
wow.
They think that was completely okay to take a 15-year-old to a separate location away from her parents. It doesn't matter if it's a restaurant. Like it was completely unintended. Like anything could have happened, right? And,
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying something did happen. I think it's important to just put it out there that like if you put yourself in this situation, right, where nobody knows, right, the implication of something happening is almost just as bad because you've set yourself up. You've put yourself into that situation.
Right.
You've put yourself into that label of being, oh, you're the person that met up with a 15-year-old and nobody knows what you did, right?
Mm,
They just know that you did. They know that you did meet up with a 15-year-old. They don't know what else you did. Like
right.
that's what the label you're putting on yourself. Is that really something that people in this community want to have?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I sure don't.
I think it's important to take those people and make an example, right? And be like, hey, if you
Yeah,
do this, you're going to end up in a big exposed video, regardless of whether you say you did something or not. You're going to end up in this video because I don't think it should be, or at least a lot of the community as well doesn't think it's appropriate to do that in the first place.
no, of course not. Let's see here. So yeah, let's see. If I were to come back to 2B2T, I'd probably leave the chat off too. I'd
You
have to
think it's that
use
bad?
different. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, I don't want to have contact with minors. Like I genuinely don't want to talk to children. Like I even like even like speaking to children is just kind of like a for me. I'm like to the point where I'm a certain age, a certain level of maturity, and I think that what goes on in the chat of 2B2T is unfiltered, not monitored well, unless I'm missing something, and it's just not the place for me. I think that I can do some good, and I like the idea of an anarchy platform where there's a lot of people building. But the thing about Minecraft is it's such an immersive experience and it's very discordable, right? So everybody uses Discord. Every one of those players is probably on a Discord server, right? So eventually you're gonna speak to them, you're gonna have contact with them, right? So I see that as an issue.
Oh yeah, 100%. And
So
I feel like
so I
Discord doesn't even really do enough action to like prevent that kind of stuff. Like they don't really.
yeah,
That's not a big initiative that I notice on Discord.
yeah, I think I would rather recruit. If I were to do my recruiting again, I would make a Reddit post and I would call for members there. Maybe I'd do some in chat advertisement, but I'd stress that it's for mature people. Um, but besides that, not have a lot of interaction in chat because I want to interact with the world and the map, but I don't necessarily want to interact with children at
Yeah,
all.
and I think that's a very wise vision for the future, honestly. Well,
Right. I think it's what more people need to be doing.
oh, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so yeah, it's my idea.
Well, Oreo, thank you so much for coming in and talking. I appreciate it. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and thank you everybody for watching. This has been the Dr. Nerd Show signing off once again. Maybe I'll be back soon. Maybe not. Uh, Hopefully I'll be back soon with another interview. But whatever. Goodbye.